Hello, dear listeners. Tonight, I am taking you on a journey through time, following the path of a mysterious red berry that changed the fate of nations, specifically the dark and turbulent history of coffee. Welcome to the Another Life History channel. If you enjoy this kind of immersive storytelling, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You find yourself standing on the rugged, verdant edges of the Kaffa province, in the highlands of what history will one day know as Ethiopia. The air here is thin, crisp, and carries the scent of ancient earth and rain. It is the 9th century, a time when the boundaries of the known world are drawn by myths and shadows. You are far removed from the marble halls of Europe or the sand-swept palaces of the East. Here, the world is green, vertical, and silent, save for the wind rustling through the canopy of wild forests. You feel the damp moss beneath your feet, and the solitude of a landscape that has remained unchanged for millennia. This is where the story begins, not with a roar, but with a whisper in the leaves. You are watching a goat herd named Kaldi, though in this moment you are walking in his footsteps, feeling his exhaustion. The sun is dipping below the jagged horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and gold. By all laws of nature, the day should be ending. The rhythm of life here is dictated by the sun. When the light fades, the body sleeps. It is the natural order, but tonight that order is broken. You look down into the valley and see something that defies logic. The herd of goats, usually docile and lethargic after a day of grazing on the steep slopes, is possessed by a strange, frantic energy. They are not resting. They are bleating, leaping, and headbutting the air. They are dancing. You watch them with a mixture of confusion and superstitious dread. In this era, anything that deviates from the norm is often attributed to spirits or demons. To see animals rejecting the heavy cloak of sleep feels unnatural. You move closer, pushing through the dense underbrush, your curiosity outweighing your fear. You need to understand what source of energy could possibly animate these creatures when the rest of the world is preparing for darkness. Your eyes scan the vegetation. Amidst the familiar shrubs and tall grasses, you spot a shrub that you have passed 1,000 times but never truly noticed. It is glossy-leaved, vibrant, and dotted with bright, cherry-red berries. They look innocent, hanging there like jewels against the dark green foliage. You watch as one of the goats snaps a branch, chewing greedily on these red fruits. Moments later, that same goat is bounding up the hillside with the vigor of a kid. You reach out. The branch is rough against your palm. You pluck a single red berry. It is firm, cool to the touch. You hesitate. In the wild, to eat the unknown is often to invite death. But the energy radiating from the herd is intoxicated, almost miraculous. You place the berry in your mouth. You bite down. First, there is sweetness, the flesh of the fruit. Then you encounter the seed within, hard and unyielding. But as you swallow, something shifts. It is not an immediate explosion, but a rising tide. You feel a subtle warmth spreading from your stomach to your chest. The fog that usually settles over your mind at twilight begins to lift. The heaviness behind your eyes evaporates. You feel your heart beat a little faster, a rhythmic drum echoing against your ribs. Your senses sharpen. The colors of the twilight seem more vivid, the sounds of the forest more distinct. You are suddenly, terrifyingly awake. This is the first contact. You have just introduced a chemical key into the lock of your consciousness, though you have no words for caffeine or neurotransmitters. You only know that you have cheated the night. You have consumed a power that belongs to the gods, a power to banish fatigue. And in this moment of clarity, standing alone on an Ethiopian hillside, you feel a thrill of discovery that is tainted with a shadow of guilt. If this fruit can alter the mind so profoundly, is it a gift or is it a curse? Driven by this newfound vitality, you gather more of the berries. You feel a compulsion to share this discovery, or perhaps to seek absolution for the strange buzzing in your veins. You turn your gaze toward the local monastery. In this time and place, the holy men are the keepers of knowledge, the arbiters of what is sacred and what is profane. If there is an answer to this mystery, it lies within their stone walls. You carry the bundle of red fruit to the monastery, the journey feeling effortless despite the steep climb. You present your finding to the head monk. You do not speak, but your offering tells the story. You show him the vibrancy of the fruit, the energy it contains. You expect wonder. You expect gratitude. Instead, you are met with fear. The monk looks at the berries, then at your wide, unblinking eyes. He sees the unnatural alertness in your stance. To a man who dedicates his life to prayer and the natural cycles of God's creation, this artificial wakefulness is an abomination. Sleep is a surrender to the divine, a necessary humility of the human condition. To artificially extend the day is to challenge the limits set by the Creator. He judges the berries not by their botanical nature, but by their effect on the soul. He deems them a tool of the devil, a temptation to alter the mind. With a look of disdain, the monk snatches the berries from your hands. He does not taste them, he condemns them. He throws the bright red handful into the hearth fire burning in the center of the room. He intends to destroy the wickedness, to purge the devil's fruit with flame. But then the transformation happens. You watch as the fire licks at the berries. The flesh burns away, charring and peeling. But the seed inside, the bean, does not turn to ash immediately. It begins to roast. Slowly, the room is filled with a scent unlike anything that has ever existed on earth before. It is not the smell of burning wood or cooking meat. It is rich, complex, earthy, and nutty. It is an aroma that bypasses the logic of the brain and speaks directly to the senses. It is seductive. The monk freezes. The other brothers in the monastery stop their prayers. The smell is not foul, it is heavenly. It hangs heavy in the air, weaving a spell over everyone in the room. The intent to destroy has inadvertently created the first roast. You watch as the monks, overcome by the intoxicating fragrance, rake the blackened beans out of the fire. They cannot let such a divine smell go to waste. They are confused now. How can something that smells of paradise be of the devil? In an attempt to salvage them, to cool the embers, they toss the roasted beans into a vessel of water. You watch the water turn dark, a deep, murky brown, absorbing the essence of the roasted seeds. They have created a crude infusion. Curiosity wins over dogma once again. The monks pass the vessel around. They drink. The effect is immediate. You observe the change in the monastery that night. Usually, the hours of midnight prayers are a struggle against the weight of the eyelids, a battle between the spirit and the flesh. Monks nod off, their chants trailing into silence. But tonight, there is no silence. Tonight, the prayers are vibrant, loud, and unwavering. The dark liquid has granted them the power to stay awake, to focus their minds on the divine for hours without fatigue. The narrative shifts here. The devil's label is whispered, but the utility is undeniable. They have found a way to cheat the body to serve the spirit, but the seed of doubt remains planted. You can feel the tension in the air. This drink allows them to pray more, yes, but it does so by altering their natural state. It is a paradox that will haunt this black liquid for centuries. It gives clarity, but it takes away rest. It is a fuel, but it burns the reserves of the body. You remain in the shadows of the monastery, watching this new ritual take hold. The news of the awake-making berry does not stay trapped in these high mountains. It is too powerful a secret to keep. You feel the winds of change blowing north and east. The berries are no longer just food for goats. They are a commodity, a medicine, a sacrament. As you look out from the highlands of Ethiopia, you can almost see the path this being will take. It will not stay in the wild forests. It is destined to cross the Red Sea. It is destined for the mystics of Yemen. You realize that you have witnessed the birth of a new era for humanity, an era where the sun no longer dictates when the work of men must end. You have seen the first cup poured, and you know, with a certainty that vibrates in your caffeinated blood, that the world will never sleep the same way again. But the suspicion lingers. You saw the monk's initial reaction, the fear of the unnatural. That fear has not vanished. It has only been suppressed by the utility of the drink. The question hangs in the air like the smoke from the roasting beans. Is this a gift to help men pray, or a trick to keep them from the peace of sleep? The journey has only just begun, and the label of the devil's drink is a shadow that will follow this liquid as it travels from the silence of the mountains to the noise of the cities. You turn your back on the monastery, looking toward the east, where the next chapter awaits. The secret is out. You leave the mist-shrouded highlands of Ethiopia behind. The secret of the red berry is no longer confined to the goat paths and lonely monasteries of Africa. You feel the pull of the trade winds, the ancient rhythm of commerce that flows across the narrow strip of water separating two worlds. You are crossing the Red Sea now. The air changes. The cool, damp earthiness of Kaffa is replaced by the salty, humid heat of the Arabian Peninsula. You are arriving in Yemen. It is the 15th century. You stand on the docks of a port city that will one day become a legend in its own right. Al-Mokka, or Mocha. The hustle here is different. It is the friction of the world meeting itself, spices, silks, and slaves moving in a chaotic dance. But tucked away in the cargo holds of the dhows arriving from the African coast, there are sacks of the strange, dried berries. You watch as they are unloaded. They are not treated as gold or frankincense yet. They are a curiosity, a tool for the pious. You follow the sacks inland, away from the coast, up into the terraced mountains of Yemen. Here, the earth is dry and demanding. You witness a crucial evolution. In Ethiopia, the coffee grew wild, a gift of the forest. Here, you see the hand of man interfering with nature. You see the first intentional cultivation. Men are digging into the rocky soil, planting rows of trees, nurturing them with scarce water. They are taming the wild energy you tasted in the forest. They are making it their own. You find yourself drawn not to the markets, but to the zawiyas, the lodges of the Sufi mystics. Night has fallen over Yemen, a blanket of stars so bright they seem to press down on the earth. In the center of the lodge, a fire burns low. The air is thick with the smell of frankincense and something else, that now familiar, roasted, earthy aroma. You sit in the shadows and watch the ritual of the dhikr, the remembrance of God. The Sufis are seeking a state of spiritual ecstasy, a closeness to the divine that requires the shedding of the earthly self. Usually the body is an anchor, heavy with fatigue, dragging the spirit down. But tonight, The anchor is cut. A clay pot is passed around the circle. The liquid inside is dark, almost black and steaming. It is no longer the crude tea of the Ethiopian monks. Here they have refined the process. The beans have been roasted to a deep brown, ground into a powder, and boiled with spices, cardamom and cinnamon. It is a potion. You watch as the dervishes drink. They do not sip for pleasure, they drink for function. As the caffeine hits their bloodstreams, the chanting begins. Allah, Allah, Allah. The rhythm speeds up. Bodies begin to sway. You feel the energy in the room rise, a tangible vibration. The exhaustion of the day dissolves. The drink has acted as a fuel for the soul. They spin, they chant, they breathe in unison, hour after hour, deep into the night. You realize that without this black wine, the flesh would have failed them long ago. Here, in the dim light of the Yemeni lodge, the drink is given a name that will spark centuries of controversy. Kahwa. You know this word. In the ancient Arabic tongue, kahwa is a poetic term for wine. It refers to something that suppresses the appetite, that clouds the senses. By naming this new drink kahwa, the mystics have inextricably linked it to alcohol in the linguistic mind of the region. They call it the wine of Araby. But you see the difference. Wine leads to a stupor, a loss of control, a descent into chaos. This drink leads to hyper-awareness, a sharpness of the mind, a frightening clarity. It is the anti-wine. Yet the name sticks. And names have power. By calling it wine, they have invited the scrutiny of the law. You move forward in time, slipping through the decades. The secret escapes the Sufi lodges, just as it escaped the Ethiopian monastery. You are now walking the streets of Aden, and then Mecca. The drink has spilled out into the open. It is no longer just for the holy men. You see a new type of establishment opening its doors. It is not a mosque, and it is not a home. It is the Kave Canes, the coffee house. You step inside one of these early venues. The atmosphere is radically different from anything you have experienced in the medieval world. There is no alcohol here, so there is no drunken brawling. There is no slurry speech or stumbling gaits. Instead, there is intense, rapid-fire conversation. You listen to the hum of the room. Men are sitting on mats, sipping from small cups, and they are talking. They are playing chess. They are reciting poetry. But most dangerously, they are discussing news. They are criticizing the local governor. They are debating the merits of the Sultan. You realize that coffee has done something revolutionary. It has created a public space where people are sober, awake, and intellectually active. In a world ruled by absolute authority, a sober, critical populace is a terrifying prospect. Alcohol numbs the masses. Coffee awakens them. You feel the tension brewing in these rooms. The authorities are watching. The smoke from the pipes and the steam from the coffee mix with the whispers of sedition. You are witnessing the birth of public opinion, and the rulers do not like it. The year is 1511. You are standing in the holy city of Mecca. The heat is oppressive, radiating off the white stones of the Kaaba. The man in charge is Khair Beg, the governor of Mecca. You watch him as he patrols the streets. He is a man of strict order, a man who fears chaos above all else. One night, he finds a group of men huddled in a corner of the mosque courtyard, passing a cup around, their eyes wide and manic, their whispers loud in the silence. He suspects wine. He smells the cup and is confused by the earthy, burnt odor. They tell him it is coffee. They tell him it helps them pray. Khair Beg does not believe them. He sees the way they look, agitated, overly confident. He sees a threat to the established order. He consults with his physicians, men who follow the ancient Greek humors. They tell him that coffee is cold and dry, that it disturbs the balance of the body, that it causes melancholia and potentially madness. You are present at the trial. It is a spectacle. The governor summons the jurists, the scholars, and the holy men. He places a large vessel of coffee in the center of the council. The question is simple. Is this drink haram, forbidden, like wine? The debate rages. You hear the arguments. One side claims it is a plant, a gift from the earth, permissible like water or fruit. The other side, led by Kaya Beg, argues that it intoxicates. Look at the drinkers, they say. They talk too much. They move too fast. Their minds are altered. Anything that alters the mind is wine, and wine is forbidden. They bring in witnesses, men who claim that coffee made them feel invincible, that it made them neglect their duties. You can see the political maneuvering behind the religious rhetoric. Kaya Beg doesn't care about the chemistry. He cares about the coffee houses where people gather to mock him. He wants to crush the social gathering, so he attacks the beverage. The verdict is handed down. Coffee is declared haram. You watch as the governor's guards storm the streets. They seize stocks of coffee beans. In the public squares of Mecca, piles of the precious brown beans are set ablaze. The smell of roasting coffee, usually so inviting, now smells like persecution. It hangs heavy over the city, a burnt offering to the god of control. Men are beaten for drinking it. Sellers are run out of town. You see the fear in the eyes of the people. They are told that this drink is the devil's black water, a substance that mimics the intoxication of wine but hides behind the mask of sobriety. It is a trick of shaitan to lead the faithful astray. But you know that you cannot kill an idea, and you certainly cannot untaste a sensation. The ban in Mecca sends shockwaves through the empire. The news travels north to Cairo, to the seat of the Mamluk Sultan. You follow the message. You stand in the opulent court of Sultan Qansur al-Ghauri. He holds the decree from Mecca in his hands. He reads Kaya Beg's condemnation of the drink. But the Sultan pauses. He knows coffee. He has drunk it himself. He knows the Sufis in Cairo use it. He looks at his advisors. The Sultan realizes something Kaya Beg did not. Coffee is big business. It is trade. It is tax revenue. And more importantly, he finds the theological argument weak. If it does not make you lose your balance or your reason, it is not wine. You watch as the Sultan dictates his response. He rebukes Kaya Beg. He declares that while the behavior in the coffee houses might be immoral, gambling, gossiping, the drink itself is innocent. The ban is overturned. You return to Mecca. The fires are extinguished. The coffee houses slowly reopen, but the atmosphere has changed. The innocence is gone. The drink has survived its first trial by fire, but it has been marked. It is now a symbol of rebellion, of critical thinking, and of friction between the people and the state. As you look north, towards the rising power of the Ottoman Turks who are about to conquer this region, you realize the stakes are about to get much higher. The devil's drink has escaped Mecca, and it is heading for the heart of the world, Constantinople. The real battle for the soul of the coffee drinker is yet to come. You leave the dusty heat of Arabia and travel north, crossing the span of an empire that stretches across 3 continents. You arrive at the center of the world, Constantinople, now the beating heart of the Ottoman Empire. The year is 1555. You stand in the district of Tahtakale, the bustling commercial quarter near the Golden Horn. The air here smells of salt water, grilled fish, and spices from the Silk Road. But cutting through the familiar scents is that now unmistakable aroma, dark, roasted, and potent. You watch as two Syrian merchants, Hakim from Aleppo and Shams from Damascus, open the doors to a new kind of establishment. They are not selling coffee beans in sacks for you to take home. They are selling an experience. They have created the Kahvehane, the coffee house. You step inside. Unlike the rough, utilitarian mats of the Yemeni Sufi lodges, this place is designed for pleasure. You see plush carpets, low divans lined with silk cushions, and ornate lamps casting a warm amber glow. You see men of all ranks, janissaries, scholars, merchants and judges sitting side by side. In the outside world, their social status dictates their distance from one another. But here, in the haze of coffee steam and tobacco smoke, the hierarchy dissolves. For the price of a single copper coin, anyone can be a king for an hour. You witness the birth of a ritual. The preparation here is an art form. You watch the kavechi, the coffee maker, bury a copper pot, the kezve, into hot sand. The sand heats the pot evenly, gently coaxing the foam to the top. He pours the liquid into small, handleless porcelain cups called fincan. You are served not just coffee, but a glass of water to cleanse your palate and a piece of Turkish delight to sweeten the soul. They call this drink the milk of chess players and thinkers. You look around and understand why. The caffeine buzzing in the blood of these men does not lead to brawls. It leads to wit. You hear poetry being recited. You see shadow puppet plays mocking the court officials. You hear intense debates about art, science and politics. They begin to call these places Mekteb-i-Irfan, the schools of the wise. You realize that for the first time in history, the common man has a place to educate himself, to share news, and to think critically, all fueled by this dark, bitter broth. You leave the coffee house and peer into the private lives of the Ottomans. Coffee has not just conquered the street, it has conquered the home. It has become so essential to the fabric of daily life that it has written itself into the law. You learn of a peculiar statute. A woman has the legal right to divorce her husband if he fails to provide her with a sufficient daily quota of coffee. It is considered a basic sustenance, as vital as bread or water. You see the harem, the secluded quarters of the palace. Here, the service of coffee is a high ceremony. You watch the chief coffee maker, a position of immense trust, preparing the Sultan's brew. He is one of the few men allowed near the Sultan's food, for fear of poison. The coffee must be perfect. If the Sultan is displeased with the brew, the coffee maker could lose his head. The stakes are lethal, but the reward is power. But the golden age of the coffee house is about to face its darkest winter. You move forward to the early 17th century. The empire is trembling. There is corruption, rebellion, and fear. And onto the throne steps a man who is the living embodiment of wrath, Sultan Murad IV. You stand in the shadows of Istanbul in the year 1633. A devastating fire has just ripped through the city, destroying thousands of homes. The people are panicked. The rumor spreads that the fire was started by a spark from a pipe in a coffee house. Murad IV needs a scapegoat, and he needs total control. He looks at the coffee houses, and he does not see schools of the wise. He sees dens of sedition. He sees places where men gather to whisper against him, where they plot coups while high on caffeine and nicotine. He issues a decree that chills the blood of the city. Coffee is banned. Alcohol is banned. Tobacco is banned. But unlike the ban in Mecca a century before, this is not a religious scolding. This is a military purge. You are walking the narrow cobblestone streets of Istanbul at night. The city is under a curfew of silence. But you feel a presence. You see a large, imposing figure moving through the darkness, dressed not in royal robes, but in the rough clothes of a commoner. A heavy sword is hidden beneath his cloak. It is Sultan Murad himself. He prowls the streets like a predator, hunting his own subjects. You watch as he approaches a small, nondescript door. He smells the faint, lingering odor of roasted beans. He hears the low murmur of voices. He kicks the door open. Inside, a group of men are huddled around a small fire, cradling their cups, trying to steal a moment of comfort in a terrifying world. They look up and see the face of the Sultan. The cup falls from a man's hand, shattering on the stone floor. There is no trial. There is no debate about whether it is haram or halal. Murad draws his sword. You witness the brutality of absolute power. He beheads the coffee drinkers where they sit. Their blood mixes with the spilled black liquid on the floor. The next morning, you walk by the Bosphorus. You see the bodies. They have been sewn into leather sacks and thrown into the river. This is the price of a cup of coffee. The devil's drink has become a magnet for death. To drink it is to gamble your life. And yet, you see something remarkable. The ban does not work. You watch the people of Istanbul. They are terrified, yes. But the pull of the coffee is stronger than the fear of the sword. They move their operations underground. They build trap doors in their shops, leading to secret basements. They post lookouts on the rooftops to watch for the Sultan's patrols. You descend into one of these cellar coffee houses. The air is stale, thick with smoke and fear. The voices are whispers. The lights are dim, but the coffee is there. You see a man's hands shaking as he lifts the cup, not just from the caffeine, but from the adrenaline of breaking the law. He takes a sip. The relief on his face is palpable. In this moment of oppression, the coffee is more than a drink. It is an act of defiance. It is a small reclaiming of freedom. They are drinking the devil's drink to feel human in a city ruled by a monster. Murad IV eventually dies, his liver failing him, ironically, from his own secret consumption of alcohol, the very thing he banned for others. The reign of terror ends. The coffee houses slowly re-emerge from the underground, blinking in the sunlight. They are scarred, but victorious. You stand on the Galata Bridge, looking west. The Ottoman Empire has failed to kill the bean. Instead, the persecution has only made the culture stronger, more resilient. And now, the ambassadors from Europe, the merchants from Venice, and the travelers from France are watching. They have seen the power this black drink holds over the Turks. They have seen men die for it. They are intrigued. You see a ship leaving the harbour, its sails filled with the wind. It is heading for Italy. In its hold, it carries sacks of the Turkish wine. The devil's drink is about to leave the Islamic world for the first time. It is about to land on the shores of Christendom, where a new set of priests and kings are waiting to judge it. The Pope is waiting. You leave the blood-stained streets of Sultan Murad's Istanbul and board a Venetian galley. You feel the wooden deck heave beneath you as the ship cuts through the Adriatic Sea, carrying silks, spices, and a peculiar new commodity hidden in the hold. You are approaching the Republic of Venice, La Serenissima, the glittering gateway between the East and the West. It is the early 17th century. You step onto the damp stone pavement of the Rialto. The air here is different. It is heavy with the scent of the lagoon, of salt, and of money. Venice is a city of merchants, a place where profit often outweighs prejudice. But you notice the way the porters handle the sacks of coffee beans. They are cautious. To them, this is not just a product. It is a piece of the Ottoman soul. You watch as the beans are taken not to a tavern, but to an apothecary. In these early days in Europe, coffee is not a treat. It is a medicine. It is sold alongside dried viper flesh and mysterious roots. The physicians of Venice examine it with skepticism. They taste the bitterness and recoil. It is black as soot, hot as hellfire, and it makes the heart race. To a culture raised on the sweetness of wine and the nourishment of beer, this drink is alien. It feels like a punishment. As the drink begins to seep out of the apothecary shops and into the hands of the wealthy aristocracy, a shadow falls over it. You feel the rising tension in the streets and in the churches. Europe is locked in a desperate struggle with the Ottoman Empire. The Turks are at the gates. The fear of invasion is constant. You listen to the whispers in the piazzas. The priests are agitated. They look at this black liquid and they see the drink of the infidel. They argue that it is the fuel of the enemy's armies. They say that while Christians drink wine, which represents the blood of Christ and is sanctified in the Mass, the Muslims drink this black broth to mock the Eucharist. The theological trap is set. If wine is the drink of the Lord, then this anti-wine, this substance that destroys sleep and sharpens the mind for war, must surely be the bitter invention of Satan. You see the logic of the fear. To drink the enemy's beverage is to invite his spirit into your body. The local clergy begins to preach against it. They warn their flocks that the buzz of caffeine is actually a form of demonic possession, a trick to lure good Christians away from the sober piety of the church, or rather, the comfortable stupor of sanctioned alcohol. The controversy grows too loud to be contained in Venice. It travels south, down the spine of Italy, to the seat of ultimate power, Rome. You follow the rumors to the Vatican. The year is around 1600. The man on the throne of St. Peter is Pope Clement VIII. You find yourself standing in the ornate halls of the papal palace. The atmosphere is thick with incense and intrigue. A group of cardinals and advisors has gathered. They are grave, serious men. They have brought a sample of the coffee to the Pope. They are petitioning for a formal ban. They want the Pope to excommunicate the drink, to declare that no Christian soul may let this devil's sludge pass their lips without risking damnation. You watch the proceedings. The advisors are fervent. They describe the coffee houses of the East as dens of iniquity. They describe the physical effects, the shaking hands, the wide eyes, the manic speech, as evidence of the soul's disturbance. They urge Clement to close the door on this Eastern invasion before it can take root in the soil of Christendom. The Pope is an old man, but his mind is sharp. He listens to the accusations. He looks at the steaming vessel placed before him. It is a moment of profound historical weight. If he bans it, coffee will remain an illicit drug, smuggled in shadows, perhaps forever relegated to the status of a narcotic. If he accepts it, he changes the course of Western civilization. You watch as Pope Clement VIII reaches out. His hand is steady. He does not recoil from the heat. He lifts the cup. The advisors hold their breath. They expect him to spit it out, to curse it. He brings the cup to his lips. He takes a long, slow sip. You see his eyes widen slightly, that familiar spark of the first caffeine hit. He savors the aroma, the complex, roasted earthiness that is so unlike the sourness of wine. He sets the cup down. He smiles. You hear his verdict. a sentence that will echo through history. He declares that this Satan's drink is, in fact, delicious. He remarks that it would be a pity to let the infidels have exclusive use of it. He proclaims that they shall cheat the devil by baptizing it. It is a stroke of genius. With a wave of his hand and a blessing, he transforms the devil's drink into a truly Christian beverage. He strips it of its sinful association. He claims the energy, the clarity, and the power of the bean for the church. The tension in the room breaks. The advisors are baffled, but the word of the Pope is law. Coffee has been saved by the highest authority in the land. You return to Venice, riding the wave of this papal endorsement. The floodgates open. You stand in the Piazza San Marco in the year 1645. You are witnessing the opening of the first true European coffee house. It is no longer a dark, secret cellar like in Istanbul during the bans, nor is it a sterile apothecary shop. It is a place of elegance. You see the Venetians, dressed in their carnival masks and velvet finery, sitting at small tables. The cafe becomes the new center of society. You notice a shift in the rhythm of the city. The merchants are no longer doing business only in the mornings. The coffee keeps them going into the late afternoon. The discussions are sharper. The lethargy of the midday wine slump is replaced by the buzz of the black gold. You watch as the drink begins to mutate to fit its new home. The Italians do not just boil it like the Turks. They begin to experiment with filtration, with steam, laying the groundwork for what will eventually become espresso. They add milk to soften the bitterness, creating the ancestors of the cappuccino, named fittingly after the Capuchin friars, whose brown robes match the color of the mixed drink. But the story does not stop in Italy. You feel the tremors of this cultural earthquake moving north. The devil's drink, now baptized and blessed, is crossing the Alps. It is heading toward the cold, grey cities of northern Europe, to Paris, to London, to Vienna. As you look toward the horizon, you realize that while the Pope has blessed the drink, the suspicion has not entirely vanished. In the north, it will not be the priests who fight coffee, but the tavern owners, the brewers, and the kings who fear the sober, critical minds that congregate in the coffee houses. The religious war is over, but the political and social war is just beginning. You see a carriage loaded with beans heading towards Vienna, where a great siege is about to take place. You know that in the wake of war, coffee will find its next great stronghold. The Ottoman army is marching toward Austria, bringing their cannons and their sacks of coffee. The clash of civilizations is coming again, and once more the bean will be at the center of the storm. You are standing on the ramparts of Vienna. The year is 1683, and the summer sun beats down on a city that is slowly dying. For 2 months, you have been trapped inside these stone walls. Below you, stretching as far as the eye can see, is a sea of white tents. It is the army of the Ottoman Empire, a force of over 100,000 men, led by the Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa. They have come to take the Golden Apple, the gateway to Western Europe. You can smell the desperation in the city. The air is thick with the stench of unburied bodies, the smoke of cannons, and the acrid aroma of fear. You see the hollow eyes of the soldiers standing next to you. They are starving. The cats and dogs of Vienna have long since been eaten. The granaries are empty. The sound of the Ottoman sappers digging tunnels beneath the walls is a constant scratching nightmare. You know that it is only a matter of days before the defences crumble and the tide of Janissaries floods the streets. But then you see the dust cloud on the horizon. It is September 11th. The relief force has arrived. The King of Poland, Jan Sobieski, leads the largest cavalry charge in history down the slopes of the Kahlenberg. You watch from the walls as the winged hussars smash into the Ottoman lines like a hammer of God. The noise is deafening, a chaotic symphony of steel, screaming horses and black powder. The siege is broken. The Ottomans, caught by surprise, flee in panic, leaving everything behind. The next morning, you walk out through the battered gates of Vienna and into the abandoned Ottoman camp. It is a ghost town of luxury. The vizier and his army fled so quickly that they left their tents standing. You wander through pavilions made of silk, filled with Persian carpets, bags of gold coin, and weapons encrusted with jewels. The looting has begun. You see Austrian and Polish soldiers tearing through the spoils, grabbing anything that glitters. But in the center of the camp, near the vizier's own quarters, the soldiers stumble upon something confusing. You watch as they drag out hundreds of heavy burlap sacks. They cut them open, expecting gold or grain. Instead, a cascade of small, hard, greenish-brown beans spills onto the grass. You listen to the soldiers arguing. They pick up the beans, sniffing them. They smell nothing like food. "It's camel feed," one soldier sneers, kicking the pile. "It's goat dung," says another. They are disgusted. They see no value in these strange, dry berries. They prepare to throw the sacks into the Danube River, to wash away the filth of the invaders, or to set them on fire to warm their hands. They are about to destroy a fortune greater than the gold they are stuffing into their pockets. Just as the torches are being lit, a man steps forward. You recognize him. His name is Jerzy Franciszek Kulczycki. He is a hero of the siege, a spy who had slipped through the Ottoman lines in disguise to carry messages to the relief army. He has spent years in the East. He speaks the language and he knows the customs. You watch him stop the soldiers. He kneels by the sacks and runs his hands through the beans. He knows exactly what this is. To the soldiers, it is trash. To Kulczycki, it is the fuel that powered the Ottoman army, the secret behind their endless endurance. He looks up at the commanders distributing the spoils of war. "You can keep the gold," he tells them. "Just give me these sacks." The commanders laugh at him. They think he is a fool. They gladly sign over the camel feed to this eccentric Pole. You watch as Kulczycki carts away hundreds of sacks of the finest Arabica coffee beans in the world, practically for free. He has just pulled off the greatest heist in the history of commerce. You follow Kulczycki into the heart of Vienna. The city is celebrating, rebuilding. In a small building near the cathedral, he opens a shop. He hangs a sign, Hof zur blauen Flasche, the house of the blue bottle. He roasts the beans, filling the narrow street with that smoke that you first smelled in the Ethiopian monastery and the Turkish coffee houses. You enter his shop. He is dressed in Turkish robes, playing the part of the exotic host. He brews the coffee exactly as he learned in Istanbul, thick, black, sludgy, and incredibly bitter. He serves it to the Viennese burghers who come in out of curiosity. You watch their reactions. They take a sip and gag. You see them spit it back into the cup. To the Viennese palate, Accustomed to beer and wine, this Turkish soup is repulsive. It is too gritty, too harsh, too foreign. The coffeehouse is empty. Kulczycki realizes that the devil's drink is failing. He has the supply, but he does not have the demand. The bridge between the East and the West is broken by the barrier of taste. Kulczycki does not give up. You watch him in the back of the shop, experimenting. He realizes that he cannot change the bean, so he must change the brew. He decides to filter the coffee, removing the heavy grounds that the Turks leave in the cup. This makes the liquid smoother, cleaner, but it is still too bitter. He looks at the ingredients available in the dairy-rich heart of Austria. He takes a jug of milk and a pot of honey. He pours the milk into the dark coffee, watching the black liquid swirl into a soft, creamy nut brown. He stirs in the honey and later sugar. He creates a new color, a new texture. You watch as he serves this new concoction to a skeptical customer. The man takes a sip. He pauses. The bitterness is gone, replaced by a rich, sweet warmth. The caffeine kick is still there, but it is wrapped in velvet. The customer smiles. He orders another. Kulczycki has invented the mélange. He has successfully adapted the drink to the European tongue. You witness the moment coffee ceases to be an exotic curiosity and becomes a European staple. News spreads. The Hof zur blauen Flasche becomes crowded. But it is not just the milk and sugar that draws the people in. It is the atmosphere. You see that Kulczycki has introduced something else. The newspaper. He provides journals and gazettes for his customers to read. You watch the culture of the Viennese coffeehouse take shape before your eyes. It is distinct from the Turkish kahvehan. It is quieter, more introspective. It becomes a place where time stops. You can order a single cup of coffee and sit for hours. No one rushes you. It is a sanctuary for those who want to be alone but need company. You see writers scribbling in notebooks. You see composers humming melodies. You see revolutionaries whispering in corners. The coffeehouse becomes the extended living room of Vienna. In a city of small, cold apartments, this is a place of warmth and luxury available for the price of a cup. There is one final detail you notice. To celebrate the victory over the Ottomans, the local bakers begin to create a pastry to accompany Kulczycki's coffee. They shape the dough into a crescent moon, the symbol on the Ottoman flags that flew outside the walls. By eating this kipferl, the Viennese are symbolically devouring their enemies. You watch a customer dip his crescent roll into his milky coffee. You are witnessing the birth of the breakfast ritual that will conquer the world. This crescent pastry will eventually travel to France, where it will become the croissant. As you sit in the warm glow of the blue bottle, watching the snow fall outside on the streets of Vienna, you realize that the invasion was successful after all. The Ottomans did not conquer Vienna with swords, but they conquered it with coffee. The West has been won. The drink is no longer a devil's brew or a Muslim potion. It is now the height of sophistication. But across the channel, on an island of tea drinkers and ale swillers, a different kind of coffee revolution is brewing. You look west again. The English are waking up. And in London, coffee will not just build a social scene, it will build the modern financial world. The penny universities are waiting. You leave the elegant, music-filled salons of Vienna and cross the channel to a darker, grittier world. You arrive in London in the year 1652. The air here tastes of coal smoke and river mud. The city is recovering from a civil war, and the mood is somber. For centuries, the people of this island have started their day with small beer or ale, simply because the water is too filthy to drink. You are walking through a society that exists in a perpetual, mild fog of alcohol. From the judge to the ploughman, everyone is slightly intoxicated from dawn until dusk. But you are standing in St. Michael's Alley, Cornhill, witnessing a moment that will snap the English mind into focus. You watch a man named Pasqua Rosé, a Greek servant brought from Smyrna, set up a simple wooden stall. He is not selling ale. He is brewing the black gruel. You watch the first Londoners approach. They are suspicious. The drink looks like soot and smells like burnt shoes. They taste it. It is bitter, hot and foreign. But then the effect takes hold. You see the change in their eyes. The fog lifts. For the first time in their lives, they are not numb. They are alert. The alcohol depressant is replaced by the caffeine stimulant. You are witnessing the biological kickstart of the British Empire. The English are sobering up, and the consequences will be world-changing. You move forward a few decades. The wooden stall has vanished, replaced by over 3,000 coffee houses sprawling across London. The city has become an addict. You step inside one of these establishments, perhaps the Turk's Head or the Grecian. The atmosphere is thick enough to chew. It is a dense cloud of tobacco smoke, steam, and the smell of drying ink. You walk to the counter. A woman is often running the bar, the coffee woman, while a boy runs messages. You place a single penny on the counter. This is the admission fee. With this coin, you buy not just a seat, but equality. You look around the room. You see a strange mix of humanity. There are aristocrats in powdered wigs sitting next to muddy-booted traders, scholars from Oxford debating with rat catchers, poets arguing with politicians. You read the rules of the coffee house pinned to the wall. They explicitly state that no man may give up his seat to another of higher rank, and that swearing is fined. In a rigid class society, this room is a radical experiment in democracy. They call these places penny universities. You realize that for the price of a cup, anyone can listen to the smartest minds in the country. You are standing in the internet of the 17th century. This is where news travels. You leave the debates of the philosophers and head toward Exchange Alley. Here, the energy is frantic. You enter Jonathan's coffee house. The noise hits you like a physical blow. Men are standing on tables, shouting numbers, waving papers. You are witnessing the birth of the London Stock Exchange. There is no official building for trading stocks yet. It happens right here, fueled by caffeine. You watch a broker take a sip of black coffee, his mind racing, and shout out the price of shares in the East India Company. Runners, young boys, dart in and out of the coffee house, carrying news from the docks, from the palace, from the continent. Information is currency, and coffee is the fuel that processes it. You realize that modern capitalism is being built in this room. The alcohol-fueled tavern was for closing the day and forgetting. The caffeine-fueled coffee house is for opening the day and planning. The concept of shares, of insurance, of global trade is being codified between sips of the bitter brew. You move down the street to another establishment, Edward Lloyd's Coffee House. The crowd here is different. You see sea captains, ship owners and merchants. The air smells of salt and tar. They are huddled over tables, looking at lists of ships. You watch as a merchant approaches a group of wealthy men. He wants to send a ship to the West Indies, but the risk of pirates and storms is too high. He needs someone to share the risk. The men at the table drink their coffee, calculate the odds, and sign their names under the ship's manifest, agreeing to pay if it sinks. They are underwriting. You are standing in the cradle of Lloyd's of London, the world's greatest insurance market. It is not a bank, it is a coffee shop. You see the Lloyd's list pinned to the wall, detailing arrivals and sinkings. The global economy is being managed from this room. Without the clarity provided by coffee, the complex calculations of risk and reward might never have happened with such precision. But it is not just money. You travel to the Grecian coffee house near the Royal Society. Here, you see a different kind of intensity. You see men like Isaac Newton and Edmund Halley. They are not discussing money. They are dissecting the universe. You watch as a group of scientists clears a table. They are not eating. They are placing a dead dolphin on the wood. They are dissecting it right there in the middle of the coffee house to understand its anatomy. The patrons do not vomit. They lean in. They ask questions. The coffee house is the laboratory of the Enlightenment. It is where superstition goes to die. You listen to them debate physics, astronomy, and biology. The caffeine keeps them arguing late into the night. You realize that the scientific revolution is not just happening in lonely towers. It is happening here, in the public sphere, driven by the collective intelligence of a caffeinated crowd. But power always fears what it cannot control. You move to the year 1675. King Charles II is on the throne. He looks at these coffee houses and he sees the same thing Sultan Murad saw: danger. He sees places where men read sedition, uncontrolled news, where they criticize the government, where they organize. You read the proclamation for the suppression of coffee houses. The king declares that these places are resorts for idle and disaffected persons, and that they spread false, malicious, and scandalous reports. He orders them all closed. He wants to drag England back to the tavern, back to the manageable stupor of ale. But you witness something remarkable. In Istanbul, the Sultan's word was death. In London, the king's word is debated. The outcry is instant and deafening. It does not just come from the radicals, it comes from the merchants, the stockbrokers, the insurers. They tell the king that if he closes the coffee houses, he halts the economy. He stops the flow of news. He kills the golden goose. You watch the king back down. The ban lasts barely a week. The power of the coffee house is now greater than the power of the crown. The drink has become too essential to the machinery of the state to be removed. As you stand on the docks of London, watching the ships leave, you realize the demand for this bean is becoming voracious. The small terraced gardens of Yemen can no longer satisfy the thirst of London, Paris, and Vienna. The penny universities need more fuel. You see a ship being loaded, but it is not carrying coffee. It is carrying chains. It is heading for Africa, then to the Caribbean and South America. The Europeans have taken the seedling. The Dutch have already planted it in Java. The French are taking it to Martinique. The story is about to take a dark turn. You have seen coffee as a source of spiritual awakening, of social revolution, and of intellectual freedom. But now, as it crosses the Atlantic to the New World, it will become a catalyst for one of the greatest tragedies in human history. The age of the coffee house is ending. The age of the coffee plantation is beginning. The Enlightenment in Europe will be paid for with the suffering of the Americas. You look west, across the grey Atlantic. The devil's drink is about to find a new home. and the soil there will be watered not with rain, but with sweat and blood. You leave the smoke-filled intellectual hubs of London and cross the Channel to the heart of France. It is 1723. You stand in Paris, a city that has fallen just as hard for the black wine as its neighbours. But there is a problem. France, the most powerful nation in Europe, is entirely dependent on others for its supply. The Arabs hold the East. The Dutch hold the East Indies, Java. King Louis XIV, the Sun King, finds this intolerable. He wants French coffee, grown on French soil, to fill the French treasury. You walk through the manicured paths of the Jardin des Plantes, the Royal Botanical Garden. In a heated glass house, guarded like the crown jewels, stands a single, lonely coffee tree. It was a diplomatic gift from the Dutch, a peace offering that they hoped would remain a botanical curiosity. But you see a man watching this tree with a hunger that has nothing to do with botany. His name is Gabriel de Clieu. He is a French naval officer stationed in the colony of Martinique. He looks at this tree and sees the future. He knows that the volcanic soil of the Caribbean is perfect for this plant. He imagines hillsides covered in green gold. He petitions the royal court for a clipping, a seedling, anything to take back with him. You watch as the bureaucrats deny him. They are too cautious, too protective of the king's specimen. But de Clieu is not a man to accept a no. You witness a midnight raid, or perhaps a bribed gardener. History is blurry here, but the result is clear. De Clieu leaves Paris with a small, fragile coffee seedling. He plants it in a box covered with a glass dome to protect it from the salt spray. He boards the ship Le Dromadaire, bound for the Americas. He believes he is carrying a fortune. He has no idea he is carrying a curse. You are on the Atlantic Ocean now. The journey is a nightmare. You feel the ship lurching in the violent swells. The Dromadaire is plagued by misfortune. First, there is a spy on board, a man perhaps hired by the Dutch or simply a jealous rival who tries to sabotage the mission. You watch de Clieu sleeping on the deck, his sword drawn, curling his body around the glass box. He fights off an attempt to snap the delicate stem. He becomes the plant's bodyguard. Then the pirates appear. You hear the boom of cannons, the splintering of wood. The ship barely escapes, outrunning the corsairs of the Tunisian coast. But the greatest enemy is not human. It is the wind. The ship hits the doldrums. The sails hang limp. The sun beats down with a hammer's force. The ship drifts for weeks. Water supplies run critically low. The captain issues strict rationing. You watch the crew, their lips cracked, their tongues swollen, lining up for their single cup of water a day. De Clieu is dying of thirst like the rest, but you see him do something insane. He looks at the coffee plant. It is drooping, its leaves browning in the heat. It needs water to survive. You watch de Clieu take his ration. He stares at the cup. His body screams for the liquid, but his ambition screams louder. He pours half of his precious water into the soil of the glass box. He shares his life force with the plant. He drinks the remaining drops and collapses by the box. Day after day, this ritual continues. He withers, but the plant survives. It is a bond of blood and water. He has decided that this plant is more important than his own comfort, perhaps even his own life. You see the outline of Martinique on the horizon. De Clieu stumbles ashore, a skeleton of a man cradling the glass box. The seedling is alive. He takes it to his estate at Pressure. You watch him plant it in the rich, dark soil. He surrounds it with a hedge of thorns. He posts guards to watch it 24 hours a day. This is the Adam of the Americas, the father of millions. The soil of the New World embraces the African stranger. The tree grows with terrifying speed. It bears fruit. The seeds are replanted. You watch the timeline accelerate. From this single tree, the coffee plants spread like a green fire. They cross the mountains of Martinique. They jump to Guadeloupe. They travel to Haiti, Saint-Domingue. Within 50 years, there are nearly 19 million coffee trees on Martinique alone. Desclieux is hailed as a hero. He is wealthy, honored, and remembered as the man who brought the sober drink to the Americas. But you step back from his glory. You look at the hillsides. The forest is gone, replaced by endless rows of coffee shrubs. And you see who is walking between the rows. You are no longer in the polite salons of Paris. You are in the brutal heat of the plantation. You see the labor force that makes the European Enlightenment possible. You see thousands of enslaved Africans, bent double under the tropical sun. Coffee is a demanding crop. It requires constant attention. The berries do not ripen all at once. They must be picked by hand, one by one, as they turn red. It is tedious, back-breaking work. You watch the process, the picking, the depulping, the fermenting, the drying, the roasting. Every step requires human hands. You realize the supreme irony of history. In London and Paris, coffee is the drink of liberty. It is the fuel of the writer, the philosopher, the revolutionary talking about the rights of man. But here, in the Caribbean, coffee is the product of absolute tyranny. The clarity of mind enjoyed by Voltaire and Rousseau is purchased with the sweat and blood of men and women who have no rights at all. The penny universities are built on the backs of the unfree. You watch as the ships leave the Caribbean ports, heavy with sacks of beans. They are heading back to the Europe you left. The cycle is complete. The West consumes the energy. The South pays the physical price. The devil's drink has not lost its darkness. It has only hidden it in the ledger books of the plantation owners. But the spread is not finished. You look south to the vast sleeping giant of the continent, Brazil. The Portuguese control this land, and they are desperate for their own coffee. They see the French success in Guyana and Martinique, and they are jealous. But the French governor in Guyana refuses to give up a single seed. He guards the border with soldiers. You witness one last great heist in this era. The year is 1727. The Portuguese send a charming, handsome military officer named Francisco de Melo Paleta to French Guiana. His mission is ostensibly to settle a border dispute. His real mission is to get the coffee. You watch him at the governor's mansion. He does not try to steal the beans from the fields like a thief. He plays a different game. He charms the governor's wife. You see the stolen glances, the dinner parties. When Paleta prepares to leave, the governor's wife presents him with a farewell gift, a large bouquet of flowers. He accepts it with a bow. He boards his ship. Once he is at sea, he pulls apart the bouquet. Buried deep inside the flowers, hidden among the blooms, are fertile coffee beans. The governor's wife has betrayed her husband and her country for the handsome Portuguese officer. You watch Paleta arrive in Brazil. He plants the beans in the state of Pará. You are witnessing the birth of a monster. These few stolen beans will grow into an industry that will eventually swallow the world. Brazil is destined to become the colossus of coffee, the producer of nearly a third of the world's supply. As you stand on the red earth of Brazil, looking at the first saplings taking root, you feel the weight of what is coming. The devil's drink has conquered Islam, it has conquered Christendom, and now it has conquered the New World. It has become a global commodity. But the world is changing. The age of kings is ending. The revolutions are coming, and the men who will lead them, in America and in France, will be planning the overthrow of monarchs with mugs of this very coffee in their hands. The drink that was grown by slaves is about to fuel the war for freedom. You leave the sweltering plantations of Brazil and travel north to the rocky, wind-swept coast of Massachusetts. The year is 1773. You are standing in Boston, a city on the edge of a nervous breakdown. The air is cold, but the political climate is scorching hot. You feel the tension in the cobblestone streets. The British Crown is tightening its grip, and the colonists are suffocating under taxes they did not vote for. For generations, these people have been English in their habits. They love their tea. It is the rhythm of their day, the warmth of their home, the symbol of their connection to the mother country. To drink tea is to be civilized, but tonight that connection is about to be severed. You find yourself in the Green Dragon Tavern. It is dim, smoky, and crowded, but the men here are not drunk. They are conspiring. You see the Sons of Liberty huddled in the corner. They are angry. The king has imposed a tax on tea, asserting his right to rule their wallets as well as their laws. They have decided that they will not pay. You follow them out into the freezing December night. They smear soot on their faces, disguising themselves as Mohawk warriors. They march to the harbour where the British ships, the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver, are docked, their holds filled with crates of tea. You hear the wood splinter as the crates are smashed open. You watch as 342 chests of tea are hurled into the dark, icy waters. The harbour turns into a cold, salty teapot. The next morning, the world has changed. You walk through the streets of Boston. The smell of wet, ruined tea leaves rots on the shore. But inside the homes, a different smell is taking over. To drink tea now is to drink with the enemy. It is the traitor's water. It is the drink of submission. You watch as families make a conscious, painful choice. They put away their tea sets. They reach for the coffee bean. Until now, coffee was a luxury or a merchant's drink. Now it is a weapon. It is the patriotic brew. You see a blacksmith brewing a pot of coffee. It is bitter, it is dark, and it is everything tea is not. He drinks it not for the taste, but for the statement. He is swallowing independence. You realize that a fundamental shift has occurred in the American DNA. They are rejecting the polite, sleepy ritual of afternoon tea for the jagged, high-energy buzz of coffee. They are choosing a fuel that makes them work harder, move faster, and think sharper. You are witnessing the birth of the American hustle culture, rooted in this moment of rebellion. The United States will be built on coffee, while England remains an island of tea. The divergence begins here, in a mug of defiance. You leave the birth of a new nation and cross the Atlantic back to the old world. You arrive in Paris. It is July 1789. The city is a powder keg waiting for a spark. The winter has been brutal, the harvest has failed, and the people are starving. Meanwhile, the aristocracy dances in Versailles. You head straight for the Palais Royal. This is not a palace for the king, It is a complex of gardens, shops and arcades open to the public. It is a city within a city, and crucially, the police are not allowed inside. It is a sanctuary for free speech, and at the heart of it are the cafes. You enter the Café de Foy. The atmosphere is terrifyingly intense. This is not the polite penny university of London. This is a den of wolves. The room is packed with young lawyers, journalists and students. They are poor, they are hungry, and they are wired on caffeine. They have been drinking cup after cup, reading the radical pamphlets that are printed every hour. You watch them. They are not slumped over beer mugs. They are standing on chairs, debating the rights of man. They are dissecting the failures of the monarchy with surgical precision. The coffee has stripped away their fear and replaced it with a cold, hard rage. They are sober and they are dangerous. It is July 12th. The door of the cafe bursts open. A young man rushes in. You recognize the panic in his eyes. It is Camille Desmoulins, a stuttering, fiery journalist. He brings catastrophic news. King Louis XVI has fired Jacques Necker, the finance minister, and the only man the people trusted. Rumors are flying that the king's Swiss guards are marching on the city to massacre the patriots. You watch the room freeze. The fear is palpable. If they do nothing, they will be slaughtered. Desmoulins does not cower. He leaps onto a table in the garden outside the cafe. You see him towering above the crowd. He pulls 2 pistols from his coat. He is crying, shouting, his stutter forgotten in the heat of the moment. "Citizens," he screams, "there is not a moment to lose. The dismissal of Necker is the knell of a Saint Bartholomew for patriots. Tonight, all the Swiss and German battalions will leave the Champ de Mars to massacre us all. One resource is left, to take arms." You watch him reach up and tear a leaf from the chestnut tree above him. He pins it to his hat. "Green," he shouts, "the color of hope." The crowd erupts. It is an explosion of energy that has been building in the coffeehouses for decades. They strip the trees of leaves, pinning them to their chests as cockades. They pour out of the Café de Foy like a flood. They are not a drunken mob stumbling into the night. They are a caffeinated army with a singular purpose. You follow them. The energy is infectious. They raid the armories. They steal muskets and cannons. 2 days later, on July 14th, you stand before the towering stone walls of the Bastille, the symbol of royal tyranny. You watch as the coffee drinkers of Paris tear the fortress apart, stone by stone. You smell the gunpowder and the dust. You see the head of the prison governor on a pike. The French Revolution has begun. You realize the supreme irony as you look at the ruins. The coffee that fueled this rage was brought to France by the ancestors of the very king they are overthrowing. Louis XIV planted the tree in the Jardin des Plantes to enrich the monarchy. Instead, the fruit of that tree awakened the minds of the people who would destroy the monarchy. The devil's drink has fulfilled its destiny. It has broken the trance of the Middle Ages. It has shattered the divine right of kings. In Boston, it created a republic. In Paris, it created a democracy and a terror. The world of the sleepy, beer-drinking peasant is gone. The world of the alert, anxious, coffee-drinking citizen has arrived. But the revolution does not stop at politics. You feel the ground shifting again. As the 19th century dawns, a new kind of power is rising in the north. The Industrial Revolution is beginning. You look towards the factories of England and America. The owners of these new machines have a problem. They need workers who can operate complex, dangerous machinery for 12, 14, 16 hours a day. They cannot have workers who are drunk on beer. A drunk worker falls into the gears and dies. A drunk worker is slow. They need a new fuel for the human engine. They need something that suppresses the body's natural desire for sleep and rest. They need the break. You see the coffee break looming on the horizon. The drink is about to leave the revolutionary cafe and enter the factory floor. It is about to be transformed from a tool of liberation into a tool of production. The devil's drink is putting on a suit and tie. It is time to go to work. You are crouching in the freezing mud of a trench in France, somewhere along the Western Front. The year is 1917, and the world has gone mad. The air smells of wet earth, rotting wood, and the terrifying metallic tang of mustard gas. You are cold, bone-deep cold, in a way that you never thought possible. Above your head, the machine guns chatter like demonic typewriters, erasing lives with every click. You are a soldier, and you are exhausted beyond the limits of human endurance. You have not slept in 30 hours. You need warmth. You need hope. You reach into your sodden uniform pocket. You pull out a small silver packet. It is not gold, it is not ammunition, but to you, it is precious. It is G. Washington's refined coffee. You tear it open with teeth that are chattering from the chill. You dump the brown, powdery dust into a tin cup of water that you manage to boil over a tiny chemical flame. You watch it dissolve instantly. There are no grounds. There is no waiting. There is no pot. It is magic. You take a sip. It tastes metallic, burnt and acidic, nothing like the fresh brew of home. But you do not care. You feel the heat spreading through your chest, thawing your frozen heart. You feel the caffeine hitting your tired brain like a lightning bolt, sharpening your senses, making you ready to face the whistle that will signal the charge. You are drinking the world's first mass-produced instant coffee, created by a Belgian inventor named George Washington, and in this hellscape of mud and blood, it is the only thing keeping you human. You leave the battlefields of Europe and travel across the ocean to the tropical heat of Brazil. It is the 1930s. The Great Depression has crushed the global economy like a giant fist. You stand on a railway platform in Sao Paulo. The sun is blazing, but there is a strange, thick smoke filling the sky. It smells rich, roasted, and tragic. You watch a steam locomotive pulling into the station, but look closely at the tender car behind the engine. The stokers are not shoveling black coal into the furnace. They are shoveling coffee beans. You stare in disbelief. Brazil has produced so much coffee, and the world is too poor to buy it. The warehouses are overflowing. The price has collapsed to nothing. You watch as millions of sacks of the finest Arabica beans are doused with kerosene and set on fire. You see mountains of beans being dumped into the ocean, turning the waves brown. It is a massacre of labor, a funeral for the harvest. You feel the desperation of the farmers watching their livelihood turn to ash. The government is desperate. They need a way to save this surplus. They cannot preserve the raw bean forever. It rots. They need to turn it into something that can last for years in a warehouse without spoiling. They pick up the phone. They call Switzerland. They call Nestlé. You are now in a sterile, white laboratory in Vevey, Switzerland. The air is cool and smells of chemicals. You are standing over the shoulder of a chemist named Max Morgenthaler. He looks tired. For years, he has been trying to solve the puzzle the Brazilians gave him, make a soluble coffee cube that actually tastes like coffee. Until now, instant coffee was a crude, oily dust that lost all its flavor. You watch him struggle. He tries boiling the coffee and drying it, but the heat kills the aroma. The soul of the coffee escapes with the steam. He is failing. The company wants to shut down the project. But Max is stubborn. You watch him experiment in his own kitchen. He realizes he needs to trap the aroma before it flies away. He changes the method. He brews the coffee, then sprays it into a heated tower, drying it instantly, but adding back the carbohydrates to seal in the flavor. It is 1938. He mixes the new powder with hot water. He smells it. It does not smell like burnt metal. It smells like a fresh cup. He has cracked the code. He calls it Nescafé. You are witnessing the birth of the modern morning. Convenience has finally defeated quality, but in a world that is moving faster and faster, convenience is king. You jump forward to 1944. The world is at war again. You are landing on the beaches of Normandy, wading through the surf with the Allied forces. You are a G.I. Joe, a liberator. In your heavy backpack, alongside your socks and your ammunition, is the small round tin of Nescafé. It is now a standard issue in the US military ration kits. You move through the ruined towns of France and Italy. You meet the locals. They are starving. They have not seen real coffee in years. They have been drinking ersatz coffee made from burnt barley and acorns. You see a young French woman looking at you with hollow eyes. You reach into your pack. You hand her the tin of Nescafé and a bar of chocolate. She looks at it as if it were a diamond. She boils water. She tastes it. To her, this American powder is the taste of freedom. You realize that the American army is not just conquering territory. It is conquering the palate of Europe. By the time the war ends, millions of people who grew up on tea or fresh brewed espresso will be addicted to the quick, easy dissolve of the instant powder. You stand in the ruins of Berlin, watching a soldier trade a single jar of instant coffee for a camera, a watch, or even a night of companionship. Coffee has become a currency more stable than the Reichsmark. You return to the suburbs of America in the 1950s. The war is over. The soldiers are home. You walk into a bright, pastel-colored kitchen. It is the age of the appliance. You see a housewife in a floral dress. She is busy. She has a washing machine, a vacuum cleaner, and 3 children. She does not have time to grind beans. She does not have time to watch a percolator bubble on the stove. You watch her reach into the cupboard. She pulls out a glass jar of crystals. She boils the kettle. Spoon, cup, water, stir, done. It takes 30 seconds. You look at the television in the corner. A commercial is playing. It tells her that this is the modern way, the scientific way. It tells her that fresh coffee is old-fashioned and messy. You realize that something has been lost. The ritual of the grinding, the patience of the brewing, the smell that fills the whole house. It has all been sacrificed on the altar of speed. The coffee is now just a caffeine delivery system, stripped of its romance, packed in glass, and sold like detergent. But as you look out the window, you see the beatniks gathering in the coffee shops of Greenwich Village. They are rejecting this plastic world. They are looking for something real, something dark, something bitter. The rebellion is brewing again. The instant age has reached its peak, and the pendulum is about to swing back. The espresso machine is coming to America. You leave the plastic, pastel-colored kitchens of the instant coffee era. and you travel back across the ocean to a place where tradition was never fully conquered by convenience. You are standing in the ruined, rebuilding streets of Milan, Italy. It is 1947. The war is over, but the scars remain on the buildings and in the hearts of the people. You walk into a small, nondescript bar on a busy corner. The air inside is different. It does not smell of the weak, watery brew that the American GIS brought with them. It smells intense, burnt, and sweet. You see a man behind the counter. His name is Achille Gaggia. He is fiddling with a machine that looks more like a chrome engine from a spaceship than a coffee pot. For years, coffee machines used steam pressure, which scalded the beans, leaving a bitter, burnt taste that made you wince. But Gaggia has an idea. He has installed a spring piston lever. You watch him. He does not just turn a knob. He grabs the large metal lever and pulls it down with physical force, compressing the spring. When he releases it, the spring pushes hot water through the tightly packed coffee puck at immense pressure, much higher than ever before. You lean in closer to watch the miracle happen. As the liquid drips into the tiny porcelain cup, something new appears. It is not just black water. It is topped with a thick, reddish-brown layer of foam. It floats on top like a crown. Gaggia calls it creamer. The customers are suspicious at first, thinking it is scum, but Gaggia tells them it is the cream of the coffee, the natural oils extracted by the pressure. You take a sip. The texture is thick, almost syrupy. It coats your tongue. The flavor is an explosion of chocolate, nuts, and deep earth. You realize, standing there at the Zinc Bar in Milan, that you are witnessing the birth of the modern espresso. This is not a drink to be sipped lazily over an hour while reading a newspaper. This is a shot, a quick injection of life. You drink it standing up, in 2 gulps, and you are ready to face the chaos of the city again. The second wave of coffee has begun, not with a whimper, but with the hiss of steam and the clank of a lever. You let the decades slip by, drifting from the noisy bars of Italy to the foggy, rebellious streets of San Francisco. It is 1966. The world is changing again. The counterculture is exploding. The hippies are wearing flowers in their hair, and the Vietnam War is raging on television screens. But in a small shop at the corner of Walnut and Vine in Berkeley, a different kind of revolution is brewing. You stand in the doorway of Pete's Coffee, Tea and Spices. The man behind the counter looks like a stern uncle. He is Alfred Pete, a Dutchman who grew up in the spice trade. He looks at the American coffee habits with absolute disgust. He sees people drinking swill, weak, sour liquid made from cheap Robusta beans that taste like burnt rubber. He refuses to sell it. You watch him at the roaster. He is like a blacksmith working at a forge. He does not roast the beans lightly. He roasts them dark, deeply dark, until they are oily and black. The smoke billows out, filling the neighborhood with a smell that is pungent and heavy. You watch him brew a cup. He hands it to a customer. The customer takes a sip, and their eyes widen. It is a shock to the system. It is strong, bitter, and rich. Pete is not just selling a drink. He is teaching a lesson. He scolds customers if they brew it wrong. He tells them they are disrespecting the bean. You realize that he is the grandfather of the specialty coffee movement in America. He is teaching a generation that coffee is not just a caffeine delivery system, but a complex agricultural product like wine that deserves respect. Among his most eager students, you see 3 young men standing in the back, listening to the Dutchman preach, watching how he roasts, absorbing the knowledge. They are from Seattle, and they are about to take this lesson and conquer the world. You follow these 3 men north to the grey, rain-soaked city of Seattle. It is 1971. The economy is bad. Boeing is laying off workers, and the city feels empty and sad. You walk down the cobblestones of Pike Place Market, smelling the fish from the fishmongers and the rotting vegetables in the gutters. You stop in front of a narrow storefront, 2000 Western Avenue. The sign above the door is modest, hand-painted. It shows a strange woodcut image, a twin-tailed mermaid, bare-breasted and ancient. It is a siren, meant to lure sailors onto the rocks. They call the store Starbucks, named after the first mate in the novel Moby Dick. You step inside. It does not look like a cafe. There are no tables. There are no chairs. There is no espresso machine. They do not sell cups of brewed coffee. They only sell whole beans, scoops of them, in brown paper bags. You watch the founders, Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Bowker, weighing out the dark, oily beans they learn to roast from Alfred Peet. They are purists. They believe that their job is to help people make great coffee at home, not to serve it to them. You watch a customer walk in, confused, asking for a cup of coffee, and being told politely that they only sell beans. It seems like a terrible business model, hardly a recipe for global domination. But the beans are good, incredibly good, and in a city where it rains 9 months of the year, the comfort of a dark, rich roast begins to build a cult following. You can feel the potential energy here, dormant, waiting for a spark, waiting for someone to see that selling the beans is not enough, that the world needs a place to drink them. The spark arrives in the form of a man named Howard Schultz. You watch him enter the story in the early 1980s. He is a plastic salesman from New York, slick, energetic, and hungry. He joins the small Starbucks company, but he feels like something is missing. You travel with him to Milan. It is 1983. Schultz is walking to a trade show, but he stops. He sees the espresso bars, thousands of them, on every street corner. He watches the theatre of it, the barista greeting the customers by name, the clinking of porcelain, the hiss of the steam, the gossip, the community. He realizes that in Italy, the coffee bar is the third place. It is not home, and it is not work. It is the sanctuary in between. He has a revelation that hits him like a lightning bolt. He realizes that Starbucks has it all wrong. They are selling the ingredients, but they should be selling the experience. He runs back to Seattle, breathless, telling the founders that they need to serve espresso, that they need to create Italian cafes in America. You watch the founders shake their heads. They are stubborn. We are roasters, they say, not restaurant owners. They refuse. They think the smell of steaming milk will ruin the smell of the coffee beans. Schultz leaves, heartbroken but determined. He starts his own chain, Il Giornale, mimicking the Italian style exactly, down to the opera music and the bow ties. But eventually, the founders of Starbucks want to sell. You watch Schultz buy the company that rejected his idea. The year is 1987. The merger happens. The siren is redesigned, her breasts covered by flowing hair, making her safe for the suburbs, and the expansion begins. You stand in a new Starbucks store in Chicago, or perhaps Vancouver, in the early 1990s. You notice something shifting in the culture. The menu is not in English. It is in a made-up, pseudo-Italian dialect. You hear people ordering a grande, a venti, a macchiato, words that felt foreign and pretentious just a few years ago are now rolling off the tongues of construction workers and soccer mums. You realize what is happening. Schultz has successfully commoditized the European experience. He has taken the romance of the Italian piazza, sanitized it, packaged it in a paper cup with a green logo, and sold it to a lonely American public that is desperate for connection. You watch a student sitting in a velvet armchair, typing on a laptop, nursing a latte for 3 hours. No one kicks them out. This is the third place in action. It is a living room for rent, for the price of $4. You taste the coffee. It is dark roasted, almost burnt, pushing through the gallons of steamed milk and sugar syrups. It is a long way from the delicate creamer of Gaggia's machine in Milan, but it is powerful. It signals status. You see people walking down the street holding the white cup like a badge of honor. It says, "I am sophisticated. I am busy. I can afford a luxury." The second wave has crested. It has turned coffee from a cheap commodity into a lifestyle brand. You look at the map. The green dots are spreading like a virus, covering the globe from Tokyo to London, displacing the tea shops, displacing the old diners. The mermaid is singing her song, and the whole world is listening. But in the shadows, the true coffee geeks are getting restless again. They look at the burnt Starbucks roast. They look at the sugary syrups, and they sneer. They know there is more to the bean than this. They are starting to talk about terroir, about the soil, about the farmer. The third wave is gathering strength, and it is going to treat coffee not as a fuel and not as a milkshake, but as a fruit. As the 1990s fade into the new millennium, you travel to the back rooms of small roasteries in Portland and Chicago and Oslo. You see men and women with tattoos and beards, bending over bags of green beans with the intensity of scientists. They are not interested in the dark roast that hides the flavor. They are interested in the light roast, the blonde roast that reveals the defects and the beauties. They are sourcing beans from single farms in Ethiopia, in Panama, in Colombia. They are paying farmers 5-10 times the market rate. You watch them brew. They are not using giant espresso machines. They are using glass beakers, Chemex, V60S, weighing the water to the gram, measuring the temperature to the degree. It looks like a chemistry lab. You take a sip of this new coffee. It is tea-like, floral, acidic. It tastes of blueberries, jasmine, and lemon zest. It is shocking. It challenges everything you thought you knew about coffee. You realize that the cycle is starting again, just as Gaggia challenged the boiled pot, and just as Pete challenged the instant tin. These new artisans are challenging the corporate giant. They are stripping away the milk, the sugar, and the branding, trying to find the soul of the seed itself. You are standing on the edge of the present day. The history of coffee is no longer just about survival, or revolution, or industry. It is now about perfection. The journey that started with a dancing goat in Ethiopia has reached the height of culinary art, and you are holding the cup. You step out of the noisy, syrup-scented chaos of the commercial coffee chains and into a space of startling quiet. It is the dawn of the 21st century, and you are standing in a third-wave coffee shop. The aesthetic here is radically different. The walls are white and bare, the wood is pale, and the music is a soft, ambient hum. You do not see large menus listing pumpkin spices or caramel drizzles. You do not see blenders churning ice. Instead, you see a counter that looks like a chemistry workbench. You watch the barista, a young man with the intense focus of a diamond cutter, standing over a glass beaker. He is not rushing. He places a paper filter into a cone and rinses it with hot water to remove the taste of the paper. He places the setup on a digital scale. You watch him grind the beans, and for the first time, you notice the smell is not heavy or burnt. It smells like flowers, like lemon zest, like fresh blueberries. He pours the water from a swan neck kettle with agonizing precision, counting the seconds, watching the bloom of the gas as the coffee breathes. This is the pour-over. He hands you the cup. It is not a grande. It is a modest ceramic vessel. You take a sip. It shocks you. It is tea-like, translucent, and bright with acidity. It tastes nothing like the dark, comforting sludge of the diner, nor the milky confection of the mall. It tastes like a fruit. And suddenly, you remember the beginning of your journey, the red berry on the Ethiopian hillside. You realize that for 1,000 years, we have been roasting the soul out of the bean to make it taste like smoke and ash. Now, for the first time, you are tasting the seed itself. You are tasting the soil, the rain, and the altitude. This is the era of the micro-lot, where coffee is no longer just Colombian or Brazilian, but comes from a specific hill on a specific farm picked by a specific family. To understand how far this obsession has gone, you travel to a cupping room in Panama. The year is 2004. You are surrounded by the world's most elite coffee buyers, men and women who have insured their tongues for millions of dollars. They are gathered around a table with spinning spoons, slurping coffee with a loud, spray-like inhalation to coat their entire palate. They are tasting a varietal called geisha. It is a spindly, low-yield plant that was originally ignored by farmers because it was hard to grow. But a family named Peterson decided to plant it high up on the slopes of the Volcan Baru. You watch the faces of the judges as they taste it. They stop. They look at each other in disbelief. This does not taste like coffee. It tastes like jasmine perfume, like bergamot, like peaches. It is ethereal. You witness the moment the price of coffee breaks the sound barrier. In the auction that follows, this coffee sells for hundreds of dollars per pound. It becomes a status symbol, not for the caffeine addict, but for the connoisseur. You realize that coffee has finally completed its ascent. It has risen from the humble camel feed of the Ottoman camp to become a luxury good that rivals the finest wines of Bordeaux. But as you watch the money changing hands, you look at the hands of the farmer. The third wave is not just about taste, it is about justice. You see the direct trade contracts being signed. The buyers are bypassing the commodities market, bypassing the middlemen, and paying the farmers a price that actually allows them to send their children to school. It is an imperfect system, but it is a start. The anonymity of the coffee blend is dying. The name of the grower is now printed on the bag, right next to the tasting notes. But just as we reach the pinnacle of flavor, a shadow falls over the mountain. You leave the sterile tasting rooms and travel back to the equator, to the coffee belt that hugs the center of the globe. You are standing on a farm in Central America. The air is humid and sticky. You walk through the rows of coffee trees, but something is wrong. The leaves are not a glossy, vibrant dark green. They are spotted with bright orange powder. It looks like rust on an old car. You touch a leaf and it crumbles in your hand. This is La Roya, the coffee leaf rust fungus. It is an ancient enemy, but it is getting stronger. You talk to the farmer. He points up the mountain. He tells you that the weather is changing. The rains are unpredictable now. The dry seasons are too hot. The delicate Arabica plant, which gives us all the complex flavors we love, is a Goldilocks plant. It needs the temperature to be just right. If it gets too hot, the plant stops producing. If it gets too wet, the fungus attacks. You watch the farmer packing his bags. He is abandoning the farm that has been in his family for generations. He cannot fight the climate. You realize the terrifying truth that haunts the coffee industry today. Scientists predict that by the year 2050, half of the land currently suitable for growing coffee will be unusable. The drink that fuels the world is running out of space. You see researchers scrambling in laboratories, trying to crossbreed Arabica with tougher, bitter Robusta, or hunting for lost species like Coffea stenophila in the humid jungles of Sierra Leone, hoping to find a super bean that can survive a hotter planet without tasting like burnt rubber. The future of your morning cup hangs in the balance, suspended between the genius of agronomy and the brutality of a warming atmosphere. You pull back now, rising above the farms, above the roasteries, above the cafes. You drift into the orbit of the present day. You look down at the earth. You see a web of connections glowing in the dark. It is a network built by the bean. You see the sun rising in Tokyo, where a salaryman grabs a canned coffee from a vending machine to survive his commute. You see the sun moving to Istanbul, where old men sit by the Bosphorus, sipping the thick sludge of history and reading their fortunes in the grounds. You see it reach Paris, where a writer dips a croissant into a café au lait. You see it cross the Atlantic to New York, where a nurse starts her 12-hour shift with a large paper cup that burns her hand. You see it land in Brazil, where the farmer drinks his cafezinho, sweet and strong, before heading out to the fields to harvest the crop that feeds the world. You realize that this black liquid is the blood of the global economy. It is the second most traded commodity in humanity, second only to oil. But unlike oil, which drives our cars, coffee drives us. It is the spark plug of human consciousness. It is the companion of the lonely night watchman and the fuel of the boardroom executive. It is the center of the first date and the comfort of the final goodbye. You return to where you started. You are no longer on the Ethiopian hillside, but sitting in your own room in the present moment. You hold a cup in your hands. You look at the dark surface of the liquid. It reflects your face. You are part of this story now. Every time you take a sip, you are participating in a ritual that spans 1,000 years and 10,000 miles. You are drinking the energy of the sun, captured by a leaf, processed by a hand, roasted by a fire, and brewed by water. You feel the warmth spreading through your chest. You feel the fog lifting from your mind. The goat herds of Kaldi felt it. The Sufi mystics felt it. The revolutionaries of France felt it. The soldiers in the trenches felt it. And now you feel it. The world is chaotic, frightening and uncertain, but the cup is steady. You take the last sip. It is bitter, it is sweet, and it is finished. You are awake. Good night.